Hello, hello, hello. Shh, be quiet. I'm trying to do an intro. In this episode, I'll show you some techniques you can use to learn how to control your airbrush. For the best results while you're practicing, I recommend using an airbrush ready paint. I talked about some of those paints in the second video in this series. The reason I recommend that is so that you don't have to deal with paint issues while you're just learning to control your airbrush. For the purposes of practicing, I'm going to just be using a white Bristol board. You can use other paper too. The Bristol board's good though because it has some thickness to it. Cardstock would work, or even maybe white cardboard. Just something that you can paint on where you can see the paint well. After connecting your airbrush to the compressor, the first thing you'll want to do is set the pressure to your airbrush. To know what pressure to start with, look on the label of the paint. It will usually have a recommended pressure listed. I'm using Wicked Colors. It says to operate at 30 to 35 psi with a 0.5 millimeter tip and to reduce for smaller tip sizes. The Neo has a 0.35 tip, so I'll probably reduce the psi by about 5 or 10 psi. I'm using the Iwata Neo, which is a dual action airbrush. To set the pressure, depress the trigger all the way down and pull back. While you're holding that back, turn the dial on the pressure gauge until you reach the desired pressure. Once your pressure's set, go ahead and add your paint. Don't forget to shake it up first. For the first step, don't try to be specific. Just try to get paint to come out of the airbrush. Pull back, push down to just kind of get a feel for what's happening. To begin with, try making dots. Push down and pull back all the way. These are going to be really sloppy and kind of ugly, but it gives you an idea of what that trigger feels like. Once you do a few of those, try pulling back only halfway. Concentrate on making a more controlled dot. Once you do some medium size, then try making the smallest dot possible. When you're bored with dots, try making lines. See if you can make a thin line. The idea is not to have like a perfectly straight line, but to feel the control. If you end up with a blotch and then a line, it's probably because you're either letting out too much air or too much paint, before you pull the line down. You can also practice wider lines. Pay attention to the relationship of the amount of air that's coming out, the amount of paint that's being put out, how close you are to the surface. The closer you are to the surface, the thinner the line's going to be. The further you are away from the surface, the thicker it's going to be, also depending on how much you're pulling back to allow the paint out. When you're tired of lines and dots, you can practice with some shapes and just getting an idea of what it's like to move around. Practice laying it really thick or really thin. You can do a zigzag to kind of test your control. If you end up with like mushrooming or tree trunking, that's because you're not moving quick enough. You can also attempt just some freehand writing just for fun. Once you feel comfortable with the practice exercises, grab a simple object and try to paint it. Be sure to pay attention to the closeness of the airbrush to the object you're painting, how much paint you're allowing out. If you're painting something like this cup that has a very slick exterior, make sure to get the paint on there thin enough that it's not running. If it's running, then you're applying it too thick. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that this video helps you gain some confidence in using your airbrush so that you can go on and work on projects and be able to utilize it and feel comfortable with it. I'd appreciate a like if you enjoyed this video. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on future videos. Look for the final episode in this Intro to Airbrushing series soon. In that one, I promise you I will cover cleaning your airbrush. Until then, see you next time.